Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zack, and today I am driving a 2018 Cadillac ATS. Up front is a 2.0-liter turbocharged inline-4, and down below is a 6-speed manual transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this ATS for two reasons. First of all, it's a manual, and this was a very, very rare option for the non-V ATS. Most of these, especially in the coupes, were bought by older people that didn't really want the manual, but a couple hundred of them squeaked out of the factory with the 6-speed, and that is very exciting. The second reason I'm super excited to be driving this ATS is because I have driven the ATS V, and I'm excited to see what the other end of the spectrum looked like. But if you'd like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. But let's get back to that 2-liter turbo under the hood. Well, it makes about 272 horsepower for this year, and honestly, I think it's quite great. For a fun little car getting to and from work, it's not bad. Is this the most mind-bending ATS I've ever driven? No. But for someone that just likes driving, it's not bad. It's engaging, it's fun, it's Turbo E enough, you get nice turbo noises, which is great. Honestly, you're gonna have a lot of fun with this. Of course, there's always going to be that ATS V up at the ceiling, but man, you could get this for a really good price comparatively. Like I said, paired to it is that Tremec 6-speed manual transmission. Now, it's a very good transmission, but it is somewhat of a unfriendly one. The Tremec 6-speed has been put in the Mustang, in the Camaro, and a bunch of other performance vehicles, so it is performance oriented, but it doesn't quite have the finesse of a sporty transmission. It's meant to deal with a lot of power and deal with very aggressive inputs. And we'll talk about why that matters a little bit later on in the final thoughts, but it is a more driver closed fist sort of transmission, but it's a manual, and I love shifting my own gears here in the ATS. Last but not least, this particular ATS is rear-wheel drive. You could only get the manuals with rear-wheel drive. However, you could find the ATS in all-wheel if you opted for the automatic. How does it feel to drive? Well, as you saw, it is actually quite lovely. The chassis itself is a little bit less luxurious than you might expect out of a Cadillac product, but that's sort of the whole point of this. This is kind of breaking that plush, comfy old man mold and having something a little bit more fun. And I like that. I think it works pretty well. Visibility is decent. Ride quality is good enough. Again, not floaty-boaty Cadillac, but definitely good and sporty. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 4 gauges and a screen. Off to the left is our tachometer, in the center is the speedometer, and off to the right is the fuel and coolant temperature. Of course, we do get a little customizable screen down below for odometer and fuel range, and I'll swipe through a couple different things here. I like this, and still feels relatively modern, given the fact that it's coming up on 8 years old. On the steering wheel, off to the left, we do have our cruise control options, as well as our heated steering wheel. And off to the right, we have our skip track and volume and selectors. To the left of the steering wheel, we do have a climate control vent, gauge dimmer switch, and parking sensors on and off. And moving on to the door, we have our memory seat options, lock and unlock, power mirrors, and power windows. Moving into the center, we get the IQ system. This was actually updated for the 2018 model year, so it does feel a little bit fresher. It does have optional Apple CarPlay, which was nice, and will help keep up with modern things. And of course, 2018 first year, we legally had to have backup cameras, so here it is. I don't think it's super great. However, it works, and it has one, so I guess, you know, that's the base level or whatever. Then we have some physical buttons for our climate controls, our volume. They're all these sort of swipe dials. I don't love how they feel, but they are physical and not shoved into the screen, so I'm not going to complain here in 2025. And if you push this little silver bar at the bottom of the climate controls, it actually opens up into a secret container. Then we have a little opening cubby with a 12-volt outlet and the shifter. The shifter is manual, and I love seeing that. If not for anything else, it just makes the car look even cooler, but it also operates very, very well. So I like it a lot. Then we do have our traction control off, power parking brake, and drive mode button for Tour and Sport. And our cup holders. So we'll do a big friggin' bottle test. The ATS fails. We knew it would, but we still gotta test. Then we do have the center console and the seats. The seats have been comfortable. They are heated. They're power seats. They're not super Cadillac-esque, however they work, and I'm not going to complain about them. What I am going to complain about is the back seats, because it's a coupe, so let's go squeeze back there. I will never not be grumpy about getting into the back of a coupe. It's just not my favorite thing in the world. Ooh, okay. And I wasn't even recording! Well, you missed me struggling into the back seat. Apologies for the radio show momentarily. There's a button on the side of the seat. Yeah, it's not great. The sedan was a lot better if you actually wanted to drive people around. However, the coupe actually has a lower roofline and a wider track, so this was for sure the more sporty version of the ATS, and if you prioritize driving, this was the one to get, especially with that Tremec 6-speed. But if you have people back here, it's not great. What I do have down here is 2 climate vents, a 12-volt outlet, and a wall outlet. I have to imagine this wall outlet is really for the front passengers so they could like snake a cord up and around, but the idea of them offering all of these things for the rear passengers that would probably rarely ever be back here is kind of funny to me. Overall, not great. I can't even really sit up straight. I'm 5'11", not a small guy, but I feel like the biggest guy in the world when sitting back here, and my head's hitting the ceiling. So neck pain loading, but let's talk about the trunk. Right around the back of the ATS, double click here for the rear trunk release, and then we can pull it up. And nothing really too crazy to write home about. I do like this ATS little pad that we have at the bottom, little floor mat. We can lift this up as well. We have some spare tools and whatnot, but it doesn't appear to have a spare tire, which is okay. It's actually really not, but what am I gonna do in a YouTube video? Anyway, battery over there, things like that. This is the trunk of a coupe. Not huge, not amazing. If you buy a flat screen TV, it might not fit, probably won't fit, but there you go. That's what the trunk of an ATS looks like. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I do like the look of the ATS. I think it's a little bit understated, and people actually sort of like that. I love the aggressiveness of the ATS V, so now seeing the regular ATS, it looks a little bit less so. However, I like the coupe, and we'll talk about that in a second as well. But overall, I sort of miss this era of Cadillac, and this is the last coupe that Cadillac ever made. Now, it went on for one more model year of 2019, but 2019 was the final model year of the ATS coupe and every single Cadillac coupe. And so the lineage of the Coupe de Ville, Eldorado, all of these wonderful, wonderful vehicles ends right here. This is the final period at the end of the sentence of Cadillac coupes, something that they were so well known for. This is the very last one. And so, a little piece of Cadillac history. We'll see if they ever bring it back. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving the ATS with a manual? Well, I'm going to split my final thoughts into 2 different segments. First of all, this car I have under my foot. It's great. It's fun to drive. It's engaging. It's powerful enough to hit that twisty back road. It's powerful enough to have fun in traffic, to downshift, to get around that Nissan Altima in the left lane. It's an enjoyable experience. It looks good, has good features, and I like it. I like it quite a bit. So the end of my review of this car is, I like it. It's good, it's fun, it's rare, and I like all of that. Now we gotta talk about the ATS as a whole. And so recently, funny enough, the day before I filmed this video, I was actually up at Cadillac's headquarters in Detroit talking to some of their engineers about another product, and as car guys tend to do, our minds wander and we start talking about the other cool stuff, and the ATS V came up. The ATS V is a great car. It had a twin-turbo V6. However, the original idea, the original plan for the ATS V was to get the 7-liter LS7 out of the Z06 Corvette. That was their original plan. However, the boss at the time had other plans. He had set his sights on BMW. BMW really gained traction in the United States throughout the 90s and 2000s. They made a chassis of the 3 Series called the E36, which was fantastic and had wonderful driving dynamics. Then the E46 came out, and it was really a heavily modified, well-done, better version of the E36. And then the E92 came out, and by the time the E92 came out, BMW had solidified itself as the ultimate driving experience and was capturing the hearts and minds of Americans across the country. Cadillac didn't like this. They saw this as BMW encroaching on their luxury territory, and so they set their sights on destroying BMW at their own game, building premium sedans and coupes that were fun to drive. That's where we got the CTS-V, the original, and the second gen with its supercharged V8. And so this car, the 2-liter Coupe ATS, was meant to aim itself at those base model 4 Series. Cadillac was so obsessed with beating BMW, they robbed us of a 7-liter ATS-V. However, when you try to copy one so hard, and if you copy someone well, it actually just ends up being a tribute. This car feels like a tribute to BMW. It feels like Cadillac putting their own spin on an already discovered flavor. Now, the chassis of this car feels a little bit less refined than the Germans. This still has American touches. That Tremec 6-speed, as I mentioned, is a lot more harsh than the ZFs found in BMWs. But in that pursuit, I think Cadillac made some good vehicles, and this is one of them. Not to mention, this is sportier than the 4-door because the roof is actually a little bit lower in this car. It has a lower center of gravity, and the actual track of the car is slightly wider than its sedan counterpart. They really tried, and they really did give the effort to try to beat BMW. Now, did they succeed? I'll leave that one up to you. But from where I'm sitting, it's one of those instances where if you shoot from the moon, even if you miss, you land among the stars. And this car is a star on its own. It's fun, it's engaging, it's lovely to drive. And while it might not quite be that European sense that they were going for, I still think it's really good. And at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. It's fun, it's good. I like it, and that's what I care about. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Franco for letting me borrow his ATS for today's video. Franco has been absolutely wonderful. I reviewed one of his cars years and years ago, and I was so excited to see his name hit my inbox yet again for his latest acquisition, which I happen to think is very, very cool. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.